for my group, I was really grateful because we had a lot of former internees whose parents have been through the experience and they themselves have been through the experience. I'd like to thank Christine and Toshin and all you guys that shared your experience with us. It was really great. We got to talk about, actually they're really well informed, so we got to learn a lot about the actual internment process, going into the camps, going to relocation centers and internment camps afterwards. And we also got to hear a lot about the post-war experience, especially because we had people that were 4 and 5 at the time that they were interned, and then afterwards, their experiences, the continued prejudice that continued in the 70s and 80s even, mainly 60s and 70s, but also their conflicted stories involving Vietnam and the military and such like that. So I also like to really thank all the students that were in my group. They asked great questions. They're really questioning and want to learn more. So just give it up to you guys. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Ohayo gozaimasu. Watashi wa Amina desu. Nice to meet you. We had sort of an impromptu group, so I really don't know what to say, but we just had a wild and crazy discussion of George was actually born in Manzanar, so he shared with us what it was like to be born in Manzanar and grow up in the post-world era. We also had, we didn't go through names, but we had someone whose mother was in Campton, Colorado, I believe, and had to Arizona, Arkansas. We also had, I guess, Sanse generation speak about how they feel of having had their grandparents go through that experience, and also Muslims what they're going through now. We had 2 girls talk about what their experience in the post 9/11 world has been like wearing hijab, and we also had we didn't get names, but someone who ran the marathon, wherever you are, give really empowering discussion of what we need to do now and where to take this step and how we can't give up and we need to keep trying no matter what. And then we had some shakuhachi, and it was just a great moment. And that's it. Jazakallah. Arigatou gozaimasu.
My name is Tim, and I was in a group with Candace Shikai. Is she here? No, okay, so if you're in my group, raise your hand. Okay, where did they go? I know they scattered, but okay, so we had a really diverse group, mostly of students, some community organizers, and of course an attorney who was in Arkansas, and so that created a very unique experience. And so a few of the big topics that we discussed were the present status of young Muslim women today in society, and they were sharing their observations of how people were curious but not inflammatory, and that I think was probably not everyone's experience, but very interesting to think that maybe their contemporaries are just very they're not handling maybe the way older people potentially could handle it. And something else that we brought up that was very interesting was we had some really interesting questions, and one of them was, does reparations end the responsibility of the government in terms of, is that done and final at that point? And we never actually got to that question, but it's something that's interesting to think about. And the last thing I think that we brought up was just the experience of young people in camp, and interpreting their stories about how they had fun and they played games, and they got to eat at the mess hall with their friends or go to a better mess hall and finding that one and eating better food. But interpreting those kind of statements and understanding that this all happened in a concentration camp, and really being aware of, okay, they're saying these things and they all sound really fun, and boy, I wish I could have experience like that, but wait a minute, I don't want to do all that in a concentration camp. So I think that's a really important distinction to make. And so always remember, both of those things are happening at once, even though maybe only one is highlighted. So it's always especially for students and people who are learning about this as a new experience, always keep that in mind. Is anyone else? No. So thank you very much, and I hope that everyone in my group had a good time. And thank you very much for participating. And to everyone here, thank you for sticking around.
My group's pretty much over there, but none of our leaders wanted to talk, so I'm going to talk instead, I guess. So, thank you. Our group was pretty diverse. We had a lot of different groups. So we had students, we had a lot of members of the Muslim community, and we had a veteran as well, or veteran slash past internee. And one of the main things that was brought to our attention is that the whole, Manzanar as a national site, that didn't happen because the government wanted it necessarily. It wasn't because goodwill. It wasn't something that they're like, oh, we need, we should do this. It was our community. It was everyone here, our friends, family, everyone involved. And one of the things that we talked about some of the problems and we see today in society, with education, not simple things such as Manzanar not even being really taught, the internment not really being part of American history. We need to change that, but it's a government. We can't expect the government to do it. It needs to come from us. It needs to come from the community, and it's up to us as individuals, up to us as a community to, really push for that. So.
My name is Mariel Tsukamoto. We had a very diverse group too. There were 2 of us that had been in an internment camp, and we did have quite a few Muslim students in our group, and we appreciated the diversity of that mix. We talked about taking personal responsibility, and that even though we sometimes take a look and say, oh, it's the government, we have to realize that we have responsibility for electing those officials. We have responsibility for making sure that we speak out in a loud enough and collective voice. We decided that we cannot, even though one person may speak out strongly, it's not often enough, and that we do have to take collective responsibility. We also talked about how prejudice is passed on from one generation to the next, and the perceptions that we have that tie into the media. I'm going to have the person that, don't you want to talk about your perceptions of how the media affects how we look at each other, and especially those of the Muslim faith. So I'm going to let her express that feeling because it was such an important part of our discussion.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Shala, and they asked me to say a few words about what we discussed, but pertaining to the media, I think the discussion kind of stemmed from the fact of how as individuals we can, what kind of changes can we make about ourselves in order to make sure that we can prevent things like this from happening in the future. And of course we discussed the history of Manzanar and in relating to that to 9/11, like how can we prevent these things from happening in the future. And so one of the things that we discussed as a solution was the media. So how does the media affect our perceptions of other people? And what I was talking about was, I'm a reporter for a local newspaper, and so a lot of times, as Muslims, our story isn't always told because Muslims, we don't have a lot of Muslim journalists in the media, so our story is told by others. But that is totally incumbent upon how the consumer takes in that information as well. As consumers of the media, and especially in a melting pot like America, it's very important for us to make sure that we're actively involved in knowing what kind of information that we take in. So just because you see a person, wearing Arab clothes, holding a gun in the deserts of the Middle East, and you see the word terrorist, and you see the word, associated with negativity, doesn't mean that all Muslims are associated with that, So the actions of one obviously don't determine the characteristics of the entire society. So that's one of the main things that we were talking about, and because I am involved with reporting and stuff, I do understand, and I was trying to encourage other people to make sure that when you do, take information from the media, make sure that you are selective, and you make sure that you don't make judgments just on one selective thing that you take.